In the 1970s, a horrifying case shocked and haunted the entire United States. This case involved a man named John Wayne Gacy, but he was known by the chilling nickname, the Killer Clown. Gacy became an embodiment of extreme cruelty and heinous crimes. John Wayne Gacy was born on March 17, 1942, in Chicago, Illinois, USA. His childhood was filled with dark experiences and undeniable hardships when it comes to the development of a serial killer. In Gacy's family life, he underwent several difficult and conflicting circumstances. He had a strained relationship with his parents, especially with his father. Gacy's father was described as consistently cold and cruel, imposing strict and rigid standards upon his son. Additionally, Gacy endured a psychological trauma that further compounded his struggles in life. During his teenage years, he was discovered to have been physically and sexually abused by a man within his social circle. This mental and sexual torment had a profound impact on Gacy's psyche and behavior. While Gacy exhibited some artistic and athletic talents during his childhood, his life was far from peaceful. He faced disciplinary actions in school and did not complete his high school education. After leaving school, Gacy enlisted in the military and later became a successful businessman in the construction industry. John Wayne Gacy was born on March 17, 1942, in Chicago, Illinois. He was described as a cheerful, sociable man who found success in the restaurant business. However, beneath the polite exterior, Gacy harbored a true demon. Gacy began his criminal life in the 1970s when he started kidnapping, torturing, and murdering innocent young men and boys. His victims were often individuals whom Gacy had come to know through social activities, volunteer work, and employment commitments. One of the most notable aspects of Gacy's crimes was his habit of dressing up as a clown and performing as a clown at local events. This became one of the ways he gained the trust and innocence of his victims. The fate of Gacy's victims was unimaginably tragic. He would overpower, torture, and kill them in moments of darkness. He then buried their bodies in secret locations within his own house. As the number of victims increased, he had to resort to different methods of disposing of the bodies, including throwing them into the Des Plaines River. The police investigation into the case of John Wayne Gacy was extensive and crucial in unraveling the extent of his crimes. Robert Piest's disappearance. The investigation began in December 1978 when Robert Piest, a high school student, went missing after being seen with Gacy. Piest's disappearance prompted the police to focus their attention on Gacy as a suspect. Search warrant. On December 13, 1978, the police obtained a search warrant for Gacy's house, located at 8213 West Somerdale Avenue in Chicago. The warrant allowed them to search for evidence related to Piest's disappearance. Discovery of human remains. During the search of Gacy's house, the police discovered human remains buried in the crawl space beneath the property. The remains were found in various stages of decomposition, indicating that Gacy had been killing and burying his victims for an extended period. Victim identification. The remains found in Gacy's house were carefully excavated, and forensic experts worked to identify the victims. Dental records, fingerprints, and DNA analysis were used to establish the identities of the victims. Serial killer profile. As the investigation progressed, the police developed a profile of Gacy as a serial killer. They looked into his past, his activities, and his relationships to understand his motives and modus operandi. Interviews and interrogations. The police conducted extensive interviews and interrogations with Gacy, his acquaintances, and potential witnesses. They gathered information about his activities, associates, and possible locations where he might have disposed of the bodies. Forensic evidence. Forensic experts analyzed the remains found in Gacy's house to gather evidence linking him to the murders. This included examining the bodies for signs of trauma, collecting trace evidence, and conducting DNA analysis. Property searches. The investigation extended beyond Gacy's house. The police conducted searches of other properties connected to Gacy, including his vacation home and various business locations. These searches aimed to uncover any additional evidence or victims. Victims' personal belongings. The police also searched for and collected the personal belongings of the victims. These items provided further evidence linking Gacy to the crimes and helped establish connections between him and the victims. Trial and conviction. The evidence gathered during the investigation was presented during Gacy's trial. The prosecution used testimonies, forensic evidence, and victim identification to build a strong case against him. Gacy was eventually convicted of multiple counts of murder and sentenced to death. The investigation into the John Wayne Gacy case was meticulous and thorough, involving a collaborative effort between law enforcement agencies, forensic experts, and prosecutors. It played a vital role in bringing Gacy to justice and revealing the horrifying extent of his crimes. Details of the case. Arrest and identification. On December 21, 1978, John Wayne Gacy was arrested after police discovered evidence related to the disappearance of Robert Peast, a high school student. Upon his arrest, Gacy became the prime suspect in the investigation of multiple missing persons and murders. Number of victims. During the investigation and excavation, police found 29 bodies buried in Gacy's house and the surrounding area. All victims were young males, ranging in age from 14 to 21. Methods of killing and torture. Gacy employed brutal torture methods to inflict harm and kill his victims. This included gagging, strangulation using ropes or cables, and physical assault and torture. Some victims were subjected to torture and sexual abuse before being killed. Identification and evidence collection. Police used techniques such as DNA analysis, fingerprint matching, and dental records to identify the victims. The search of Gacy's house yielded crucial evidence, including bodies, clothing, and personal belongings of the victims. Trial and conviction. John Wayne Gacy was charged with multiple counts of murder and aggravated assault. During the trial, the police presented reliable evidence and testimonies regarding Gacy's criminal acts. In 1980, Gacy was convicted and sentenced to death. Execution and consequences. John Wayne Gacy was executed by lethal injection on May 10, 1994. The Gacy case caused significant shock and became an emblem of the cruelty and depravity of a serial killer.